Welcome to Juggling Motherhood, Work and Everything in Between, a mental health discussion featuring inspiring Black moms, Mae Lindo, Chioma Janelle, and Nicole Brown Faulknor. In this episode, our guests address the alarming issue of the disproportionately higher maternal mortality rate among Black women compared to other racial groups. Drawing from their personal experiences and professional insights, they'll share actionable steps to protect and prioritize the lives of Black moms during and after childbirth.
I think even from giving birth, I know with my birthing experience, I was not healing properly, and if I didn't have my mother to advocate for me, could have been a different story, right? And I think the reality is as Black women bodies, and even in coming into motherhood, our bodies, our care, it's just not considered. It's okay, well, on to the next. Or even when I was having my son, I was this baby's coming right now. The nurse is no, you have a couple more hours to go. I was no, I'm pushing, this baby's coming right now. And she's okay, we'll and she's oh crap, we don't have time to get to the doctor. And I think it's just those experiences of okay, so this is how we're creating more trauma and we're creating more mistrust, right? And it's now we're entering into spaces of this is supposed to be a joyous moment, but I could have lost my life because nobody was listening to me. And this is how I'm entering into motherhood. And I think it just kind of continues. It continues the narrative and the story as we walk through. It's okay, where or who do we have as our supports when we're walking through this to help with our health, to help with some of the struggles and that we go through. So that's kind of how,
I think it would be lovely in our whole mothering journey to have more autonomy over who we can call on for help and how we can ask for that help. So I remember with my first two, I don't know why I don't remember with my last, but maybe by then he's the third. He was eating dirt and it was all good. But the first two, they would give you, the hospital would send me home with all the packets and call this number and call that number and they can help you with this and da-da-da-da. No, none of the people were Black. And maybe that doesn't matter to some, but for me that did matter because I needed somebody who could understand some of the fears that I had about what could happen to these little people, that could tell me which ones were founded and which ones weren't, that could teach me about how to navigate some of my own healing that I now had to do as a child of somebody who had been parented in a way that was not necessarily always loving and kind, etc. That could walk me through other things that were happening just because life is happening while you're parenting, right? But those weren't available. So if I flip to my role when I was in provincial parliament, those programs that would have Black folks there, to Black women, to work with Black women, they're not funded. There's mainstream systems that are funded, and if those mainstream organizations don't actually do outreach to get Black mothers to be part of that and do parenting for Black communities, then they don't happen. So I would like to see funding that is culturally responsive and culturally relevant, and that I want to say it's systemically accurate. Yes. It's not an unfounded fear when I say that when I put my Black son in particular, but my Black other children too, but my Black son into the school system from kindergarten, he can be disciplined more harshly than his non-melanated peers. It's real. And so I want to make sure that there's navigators that are able to help us to access the systems and the supports that we need while those systems are in transition. Because I know on the ground people are fighting to change these systems. But in the interim, I still have a child that I want to survive the system, and not just to survive it, but to thrive. They deserve that.
Absolutely. It means that in the system, as we work with even postpartum and prenatal, all of that, we need bodies that understand just by being existing together. Because like I was saying, we can look at each other and know we're okay. We look at each other and we're just speaking. There's something about that, okay? And it's neuromotive. That's what it's called. There's a neuromotive technique. And what happens with people who've gone to war is who have suffered amputee, part of the work that they do is they put a mirror up. So that the leg that has been amputated, the other leg, their eyes see it and it mirrors. And then their neurons fire off a different way. And so there's less phantom pain and less more psychosomatic reactions in our bodies, and we don't have any representation. Representation matters because of this neuroemotive technique, okay? And so like I say, I just walk around with these psychoeducation because this awareness is deeper than this talk. We've been talking for like what? We need to now embody, like systemic healing is about healing. Healing work is a systemic change. And so it means that the nurse who comes in and says, oh, I'm gonna push, you say, no, like, what? Healing work says this. They get to go inside of themselves and say, what makes me scared or fearful? What makes me feel guilty or ashamed about this? When they can answer that in themselves, there's less impact because there's a behavior when you respond from a helpless place. And if we don't know that we're helpless, then we're creating impact. Okay? So they have to check themselves and then say, so we can ask, we say, okay, I believe you, let me check. Okay? So there's no of this, what you felt, right? Because, another human, right? In a body that mirrors back the same, they say, oh yeah, you're going okay, right? But because there's something that's unconscious, and this is why healing work is a systemic change. We need, the people in this system need to go inward first before they go outward. We can't do any amount of training that says, this is how I'm gonna teach you how to care. 1, you're going to do this. 2, we teach people how to care? I don't think so. So healing work is a systemic change. There's lots of stuff around postpartum and all of these things and cognitive distortions in our bodies. The way we think, we have cognitive distortions because of what was done. Hopelessness is there. Irritability is depression in Black women. It just looks like irritability, but that's their symptom of depression. Is that on the checklist? Is that on the is urgency on the checklist? Because that's their anxiety and depression. There's none of that which identifies us. We're not gonna be on the checklist. They'd be like, what are you crying for? What is that? What? But irritable. I don't know why the kids are getting on my nerves, but I'm very irritable. Depression. That is in our Black bodies, okay? So there's so much guilt for feeling what we're feeling, grieving roles, the people we were before and who we are. We have so much. We need to just re-script the medical system a little bit, the healthcare system, just a little bit.
And I think it goes back to what you had said earlier, is asking the right questions, because like the reality is, one of the things is the right questions are never asked. And like, yes, I'm not gonna lie, like I was in labor and I was like, I'm good, like I need sushi. Like I wasn't crying, I was like, I'm not joking, like I presented as good and I was like, yo, I gotta put like, you know, and like my demeanor was still bit. Whereas like if I was a non-melanated body and like I'm in tears, like would I have been taken serious? And I'm like, but I can't present like that because that's not even who I am.
I can tell you, I was very Black when I was having my kids and I was in a lot of pain, and they wouldn't give me the epidural because they just assumed that they could do whatever they felt like they needed to do without me having it. So my response to you is that, and what I hear from people as well, is that often when Black women are in pain, they just assume we can take a little bit more. The system around, which is again why I think the representation in that space is so important, because when a Black nurse walks in, they were very different when they recognized how much pain I was in. They could see the pain, whereas other people couldn't see the pain.
Or interpret it.
Because
another one says, oh, I'm fine, I'm just hungry. I'm like, your hunger is pain, girl. You just stuff that.
You just...
We just move it all different.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we're going to give you a girl.
Then you get your sushi.
Right?